Yeah, we can.
Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Now, to be honest, this is actually the first time I was truly excited after seeing a case because this had Starbucks in it. Now, we're coming from a country like Bangladesh, we don't get to experience these big brands because we don't have Starbucks in Bangladesh. So yesterday we had Facebook, which was also very exciting. So today we're here to talk about Starbucks and their future plans for 2020. Now, with our strategy, grow and sustain, we feel that now Starbucks has a very crazy idea. They want to establish 500 stores in the next 3 years in one country. So we want to make sure that they can realize this dream and do it in a sustainable manner. With that being said, we're from the University of Dhaka. I'm Samim, this is Mustafid, Shahriar, and Abrar, and today we want to make this crazy idea into a reality. So for the agenda of our presentation, we'll go on with the analysis, identify the problems, and go into the details of our strategies. We'll give you the implementation timeline and analyze the risks and mitigation, and then give you the quantitative projections of what we want to achieve. Now, let's look into the analysis of our situation. Now, Starbucks China. This is not a company that just sells coffee. This is a company that sells the experience. The whole process where we go into the shop, get that aroma of beautiful blended coffee, and then just sit down, chill out with our friends, and have a great time. So when we took a deeper look into the shop distribution, they have around 1,100 licensed shops in China, and they have around 800 company-owned shops. So what these licensed shops are, they franchise these into individual entrepreneurs, and then they are solely responsible, or they have a decentralized decision-making process. So the franchises are completely dependent on what they want to do with their individual shops. Now, based on their customers, we can see that the focus point of their customer range is 18 to 42-year-olds, but they are switchers, they're not loyal. If a different company offers something better, they'll just shift without thinking that maybe Starbucks gave me a good experience yesterday. That doesn't mean I'll go there tomorrow. At the same time, the core customer base are mostly upper middle class and high-end customers. Now we're talking about a luxury coffee brand. But if you consider China, the upper middle class is huge. So it does not really fall under the traditional luxury market that we understand. Now, based on the customer trends, we can see that for Starbucks, over 22% of their orders are actually placed via mobile. So that is something that we can expand on. At the same time, we're also looking at the success of coffee delivery. The cases mentioned a company that is delivering coffee and doing wonders for their businesses. Thirdly, we also see that the fourth industrial revolution, or the big data and IoT, we're in the phase of big data and IoT, and that is where we can also use those data to our leverage. Now, this is a very competitive market. It's a red ocean market. We have both big global players and small local players. So what's happening is the small local players, the Chinese consumers have a very nationalistic approach to the brands that they prefer. Yes, Western brands have more quality, but at the same time they feel that if I go to a Western brand, I'm probably ripping my own countrymen off by spending my money and sending it abroad. At the same time, both these players are offering cheaper coffee than Starbucks. And with a huge global downturn expected in the future, this is something we need to worry about. At the same time, if we look at the global players like McDonald's, they're also starting their own coffee chain. They're also offering luxury coffee, which could directly compete with us in the long run. Therefore, we feel that in this highly competitive market, creating superior customer value is the only way if we want to justify our high-end price. Now moving on to the main problems. We see that of the total shops in China for Starbucks, over 60% of these shops are licensed or owned by franchises. But these 60% shops account for only 9% of our total revenues in China. And that is just shocking. So we can see that if we take a deeper look, we understand that there is a lack of service quality control. If I go to a Starbucks shop today in one area and I go to it in a different province, I can see that the customer service or even the product quality varies a lot. At the same time, because of the decentralized decision process, we can see that what the Starbucks' vision Starbucks' goals does not exactly align and reflect in their individual stores. And the second problem is the threat of losing your exclusive image, of losing your competitive edge, to be more precise. Because we're in a market, we're targeting the luxury market, but at the same time, because of high expansion rates, because we're opening shops everywhere, we might lose that exclusive edge, and that is something that we need to maintain in the future if we want to succeed in the highly competitive market.
Now, just to take you through our strategy again, our main strategy is to grow and sustain. By grow, we mean to achieve that 70% growth that we want to achieve in China, and doing so in a way that ensures quality in our franchises, that ensures that when we grow, we don't lose our customers, we don't lose quality or that exclusivity. And secondly, what we want to do is sustain our competitive edge. We are already market leaders in China, but due to growing competitions, there is the pressure and there is a situation where our competitors can copy our products easily and they can offer it at a cheaper price. So we need to ensure that we keep giving them extra value to keep coming back to Starbucks. Slide, please. Now, to achieve that 70% growth, we've identified two core places that we need to ensure quality in. Firstly, we need to ensure quality in our product and service quality in our licensed stores. And secondly, we need to ensure quality in our overall supply chain. Since there have been scandals in China where supply chain issues have caused big companies to lose out on customers, you need to ensure that that does not happen in China. Next slide. Now, the first part of our strategy is how we're going to ensure quality and product quality and service quality in our licensed stores. On that end, our first recommendation is to have a senior Starbucks member who's a member of our original stores be a mentor for a tenure for 6 months to a year in these franchise stores. And the main objective of this move would be consistency. You want to consistently ensure that these managers can train the franchise stores employees and give them the qualities needed to serve customers efficiently. Secondly, we want to give these franchise stores and their employees some incentive to work harder to ensure that quality that they serve to their customers. And to do that, we want to have incentive programs like family vacations. Since family is a very important concept in China, we want to utilize that and give the families incentive for the workers to work better. Lastly, to ensure quality, again, we want to have anonymous service testing on a monthly basis. So say groups of 5 or 6 people would anonymously go into these franchise stores and just experience the entire franchise experience, just to know exactly how things are working in that Starbucks. And lastly, we want to introduce big data in some way, so we understand exactly what's going on in these Starbucks franchises. So to do that, we want to automate the ordering service. So you're not ordering directly to a barista, you're ordering through a vending machine, and you may pay to a different counter, but you're still primarily ordering through the vending machine. And so this way we can monitor exactly what people order in these franchises, what works well, what doesn't work well, what order volumes are in these franchises. And we can introduce IoT technology into these machines to exactly understand how the consumer mindset and trends in these franchises. Now, to ensure supply chain quality, what we've read in the case is that roasteries are the new way Starbucks ensures their supply chain quality. They like to roast they have separate roasteries to roast their coffees, which then goes to Starbucks stores. So what we intend to do is to create a roastery in rural Chinese areas strategically around farms, Chinese farms that produce coffee. And the idea behind this is that these roasteries can directly monitor the quality of coffee from these farms. And what we want to do is we want to establish a Starbucks approved coffee farming procedure. I'm sorry for the smudges, but a Starbucks approves a coffee monitoring procedure which these farmers can follow to make quality coffee. And what we can offer for these farmers are premium prices for their coffee, so that they have that incentive to actually make better coffee for us. And again, we want to ensure them and tell them that these suppliers they're important for us, that these farmers are an important part of our supply chain. And to do that, to engage their families, we want to create these family-friendly days around these roasteries, so that these farmers can bring their families to these fairs, they can engage with the people. They can feel important, that they're an important part of the Starbucks supply chain family. And these ways, you're going to give them incentives to produce better coffee for us.
Now, even though we are opening up new stores in the growth phase, this does not ensure that we will continue to be the market leader in China. As mentioned before by my teammates, the plethora of local competitors as well as the global brands introducing their own coffee products does jeopardize our market leader position. So for this, we need a sustained strategy through which we will hold on to our market leader position. Now, our sustained strategy will ensure to beat the competition that we will face by using a global approach. Thinking global, but acting locally, according to Chinese cultures and values. Now, in the global approach, we will focus on two main aspects, which is the third place and the fourth place experience. The third place experience being the in-store experience that the customers want from Starbucks, because basically they don't just go to have the coffee, they want that overall experience. After their home or their office or school, the third place they basically spend the most time in is Starbucks, so that is the third place experience. And the fourth place experience is the online experience through the apps. So we want to focus on both of these to sustain our market leader position. So if we think about how we are going to approach this local approach, the main features of this local approach, first of all, we will be maintaining our high prices because, again, we are the exclusive brand. People do prefer the Western product over the local ones, and that is why Starbucks is the market leader in the first place. People consider Starbucks to be a superior brand that caters to their self-image. Next, we want to bring a fusion of foreign products with the local Chinese culture because, as already mentioned in the case, there have been examples where they have introduced local Chinese products and they have been great success. And finally, we want to further leverage our local partnerships to grow. When we'll be opening up new franchises, we are growing and we'll be growing into new places as well. So we'll need to further leverage those local partnerships. Now, how do we exactly enhance the third place and the fourth place experiences? Now, as already mentioned, 22% of the purchases made from Starbucks are made through online platforms. So what we want to do is we want to incorporate the WeChat payment platform and also introduce the pay and collect feature, which is you can pay online from anywhere and you can just go to the Starbucks counter, collect your order, and you can just sit down and drink. So that saves the customers a lot of time. The Chinese youth are very busy. They're very fast-paced, and this is what they would want. Second, we want to have an in-app social platform. Again, as mentioned, this is a third-place experience for the users. They just don't go for the coffee; they go for the overall experience. So, what if I can have a social platform where I can connect with the other customers from Starbucks? And if we can incorporate this into WeChat with a WeChat integration app, this will again have a very great exposure as WeChat has a very great customer base in China. And lastly, we want to further expand the gamification feature that we have on our app by introducing Fusion. The game's called Fusion. Now, through this, what the customers can do, they can create their own special drinks. They can combine the foreign drinks with the local Chinese ingredients and local Chinese drinks, and they can create a new dish, sort of a game. And the other users can vote on these drinks, and the highest voted ones will actually be available in the outlets for a week, and they can even name the drinks after themselves. Moving on, we further want to use big data and analytics to create different ambiances. For example, it is stated in the case that people go there for meetings, the office people go there for meetings, the students go there to just hang out with their friends, the families go there for family gatherings. So what we can do is we can use different big data and analytics to understand the different ambiances that people prefer. Like in the morning, in the evening time, like after the offices are over, there'll obviously be more office people there. And during the afternoon, there will be more students there. So we want to use these analytics to exactly understand the type of ambiances that we can create during different times for each Starbucks. And obviously for different groups. The second one is since we'll also have the data on their ordering history, we can also create differentiated offerings for each of these groups. Friends going in a group will obviously have different ordering patterns compared to office group who are going for meetings. And finally, we want since we'll be expanding into different places, the north of China and the south of China have very different cultures, as an example. So we further want to localize the offering by, again, leveraging our partnerships and focusing on the local taste and culture of each area.
For concluding the final segment of the presentation, I'll be starting by discussing the timeline. My team members have discussed the strategies we'll implement, and I'll show you how they'll be implemented. So initially, one of the missions of the case was to open have a total of 3,400 stores by the end of 2019. But if we do not solve our internal problems, such as the problems of quality control, as well as the issues regarding franchising, we won't be able to grow at a sustainable pace. We cannot grow externally with having an internal problem, because if we have that internal problem, we just keep on replicating and multiplying. So first, we'll be focusing on solving our internal problems. So firstly, we'll do this by establishing new store measures that will help to control the quality, as well as help the franchises to keep a grasp of the core values of Starbucks while expanding rapidly. Secondly, in order to ensure that for new stores you need new suppliers, right? So if you do not keep a control of your supply chain, you'll be having poor product quality, as well as scandals that might eventually hamper the brand of the image. So we'll, in order to keep up pace with the first strategy, we'll be keeping in control of our supply chain. Thirdly, we'll be starting the expansion. Now that we have fixed our internal problems, I think we're ready to take off, and we'll use our local partnerships to grow throughout China. And for the fourth phase, we'll be introducing new app features. Now we'll be interacting digitally with the consumers in order to help them engage with the brand. And for the last phase of the timeline, we'll be using the data and analytics to change the in-store experience and help consumers feel that different groups of consumers have their needs and everything considered. That'll actually help consumers to feel that their needs are actually being considered, and eventually they might become a brand loyal customer. Now, for the strategies we have mentioned, we have identified the following risks. Now, our strategies involve lots of new technologies. So this means that it will take a long time to eventually implement it. But however, we can help to accelerate this implementation by training the old stores that are already established, as well as for the new franchises, we can give them a new guideline for selective hiring young people, tech-savvy people who are accustomed to using the new technology. And thirdly, we could also partner with tech firms such as Microsoft or IBM, so they can eventually help us to establish these new technologies rapidly. Now, there is a chance that there might be a slower economic growth for China in the future, which might not eventually contribute to a growth of the coffee sector. So we believe that loyalty programs, as well as loyalty programs, which will help us to focus on customer retention, that expansion for that temporary moment. And finally, we have mentioned that we'll develop different competitive competencies, right? But there's a chance that our competitors might eventually copy it. But we believe that if we're able to position our product carefully, we'll be able to have that first mover advantage. As a result, we'll be able to differentiate ourselves from the competitors. Now we have made the following projections regarding our three KPIs: the number of stores, and as well as the distribution, the customer satisfaction, as well as revenue as a percentage of the total revenue. So firstly, currently we have 1026 licensed stores, as well as 785 company-owned. For rapid expansion, we'll be needing to use mostly franchising stores, which will be like 75% of the new stores. As a result, 1/4 of the new stores will be company operated. And now it's mentioned in the case that the customer satisfaction ratings are falling. We believe that our new technology, as well as our quality controls, will help to ensure this customer satisfaction. And lastly, only 9% revenue has been contributed by the licensed stores. We believe that throughout our strategy, we'll be able to increase it to 29.5% by the end of 2020. Now, to wrap up our presentation, the goal of the case is to have 34 stores by 2019. And the issues Starbucks is currently facing is regarding expansion issues, regarding the franchising strategies, as well as competition. Our strategy, Grow and Sustain, will help Starbucks to grow sustainably, as well as reinvent itself to provide a greater value for the customers, so that in China it is not just known as a coffee company, but as an experience company that helps to provide superior experiences for its customers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll now begin a 15-minute Q&A. Do you want to use the timer?
No, we don't have to.
And I'll hold up the 3 minutes. So please begin.
I can start again. Thank you very much for the presentation. Great ideas, great style. I wanted to touch on a specific topic immediately. You talked about automation a little bit, right? So what do you think, and I want to hear your thoughts, what is the biggest risk with automation of that?
The biggest risk would be we're losing customer contact employee. So we're losing on the service that the customer could have provided, or the human touch that the customer could have provided in terms of taking the order or modifications towards the order. That I see would be the biggest risk. But the advantage here is that for a lot of franchise stores, cost is a very big issue, and we've seen that because cost is an issue, they actually roll back on quality. Quality is decreased because they try to decrease their prices because labor costs are rising in China. So we feel that there is an advantage in terms of fewer employees, but the disadvantage to that would be losing that customer contact employee, losing that human touch.
Also, automation will help us to reduce the human errors that often might take place if the franchise is not properly operating. But if the process is automated, it will help them to maintain the service as well as the product quality.
Thank you.
You articulated, well done by the way.
Thank you.
You articulated that in your supply chain that stores would be around the farms. But am I wrong in that understanding?
No, I'm sorry. There wouldn't be stores around the farm. That would be a roastery.
Okay.
Roastery.
Understood. But how are you supposed to keep track when you're sitting in Beijing and the farms are basically coming from Yunnan, which is right next to Bangladesh at some point? How are you addressing that bit?
This model is particularly for China. So the farms we're talking about are Chinese farms, and family-oriented Chinese farms. And the roastery would be in an area strategically placed, surrounded by Chinese farms. So the main issue here would be, I'd say, distribution, getting the roasted coffee from those roasteries to our stores.
Okay, thank you.
Well done. I think it was very comprehensive. You had a lot of solutions to a few problems, so I'll dive into a few of them. The first one I had to do was on your pricing strategy. So grow and sustain. We're still going to commit to increasing the number of total stores. We're still going to aim for an exclusive experience, and we're still going to maintain prices at a higher point than most of the competitors. So my question for you, given the issues in the macro environment, reduced growth, lower incomes, how are you able to leverage increasing the number of stores, maintaining the exclusivity and the higher price points?
The higher price point, the motive behind that is people, they don't really go for exclusivity when they're trying to cut costs, or they don't go for exclusive experience when they are short on budget. So automatically Starbucks customers are in a different pay scale than you'd say customers who go to Dunkin' Donuts or who go to the cheaper brands. So we feel that losing our exclusivity, and the Chinese mindset is one of prestige. They like the prestige that comes with the high prices. So we did not want to take away from the prestige mindset by reducing our prices. So we want to maintain those prices so that Starbucks retains that prestige image for Chinese consumers, and it maintains its exclusivity in comparison to other stores.
If I may add to what he said, we are keeping our prices same during the time of economic crisis to maintain our prestigious image that we have. So at the same time, we're also enhancing the consumer experience that Starbucks currently has. So even though some consumers may think that the prices are still the same, they may think otherwise, but then they're getting a better value for what they used to get. So in this time of economic downturn, when they're getting better value for the same price, I think that would be a really good decision factor for the customers.
Okay, so you believe you can balance the risk of oversaturation with an improved customer experience?
Yes.
I have a follow-up question for you. I like that you touched so much on automation and integration with WeChat. Some of your recommendations made me a little bit nervous. So walk me through some of the controls possibly that you put in place. For instance, the WeChat geolocation option. I've got a 14-year-old who's in Starbucks who happens to have WeChat on there, and it pops up there's someone close to you that you may or may not know. What sort of controls would you have in place to primarily protect that specific demographic? There's a fun part of being able to engage with people based on being in the same location, but there's also a risk from opening up contacts. So what sort of controls would you put in place to manage that experience, to make it safe for your customers?
So, if I may ask for clarification, so you're asking what we are doing to do to protect the 14-year-old from...
I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
one of the
Okay,
points you
okay,
made was about sort of improving integration with WeChat. One of the examples you gave perhaps had to do with people in the same location being able to be connected in some sort of social media platform.
So, okay, there are many apps like this. I don't know if they exist in China, but there are many apps, and they match up complete strangers. And they do this by using different algorithms, for example, common connections, age group, and all the even interests. So obviously when it is WeChat integrated, all those data are already in there. So when they're pairing up to individuals, they're not obviously doing it at random. There are some algorithms at work, and then they're being paired up to minimize that risk that you're talking about.
So I believe that establishing a minimum age or using ID verification or something would help to further protect the younger people from...
Again, that is integrated into WeChat.
Yeah.
All right, good follow.
I feel safe with my 12-year-old. I wanted to push you guys on a question to help Starbucks out. You talked about the third and fourth wave, valid points. And you addressed very much what our strategy has been over the last 10, 15 years. What do you think we should be focused on going forward beyond 2018 or 19 as to what the fifth wave might be?
At one point, people could go for more convenience and stop coming to physical stores to begin with. So
That's technology, right? With all due respect. So what is your thought process as to the innovation that can happen that we as Starbucks should be investing into beyond the technology bit is my question.
I feel you could enhance the Starbucks home experience. To take that to a completely different level, say with technology, you could understand if there could be a machine of some sort that would allow the consumer to make their own coffee. Not just say espresso or a latte, but to make that special Starbucks coffee that they exactly want. That could be something.
There is an example. In Hong Kong, there's the luxury coffee brand called Hillman Rainer. I don't know if many people know about it, but there's this brand called Hillman Rainer, and what they do is they don't rely on physical stores a lot. They focus on group buying platforms so that they can sell the coffee directly to the consumers, and then they can have that home coffee, luxury coffee experience. So that is something Starbucks can invest in the future.
Good one. Okay.
Since I'm from finance, you guys threw out an ambitious, goal of 3,400 stores, and we're already at around 2,000 plus minus licenses. So there's a lot of growth with new stores, and especially refocusing on our own stores, so less licensing. But that means extra capital costs. What do you think some of the ideas in terms of, should we use our own capital? Should we fundraise? How should we fundraise? I'd love to hear your thoughts there.
Actually, most of our new stores, they'll be licensed, like around 75%, the rest 25% can be our own stores. Regarding the financing, although the financial data for Starbucks regarding all these loans wasn't mentioned in very detail, I think that maybe some a loan or something could be taken because Starbucks is an established brand, so they could use external financing since their retained profits might not be good enough. But This expansion in such a short time is a very ambitious goal made by Howard Schultz, but the thing is that it will only be possible if most of the growth comes in from the franchising, because we won't be able to grow those organically.
At the same time, if we go for the franchising model, we can share the cost with the individual entrepreneur that is taking responsibility for it. For example, in my country, there's a chicken farm that basically franchises the chicken products to different entrepreneurs, and they sell it through their own retail stores. It's branded under CP. So what happens is 80% of the cost is the entrepreneur's cost, and the other 20% is financed by the core company that's supplying the chicken. So we can follow a similar model and share the cost, because in a couple of years, a huge economic downturn is actually a possibility. So at that point, with the very ambitious goals that we have, we could eventually struggle if we invest so much in a market that eventually does not give us the return. So we can definitely go for the franchising model to share the cost, share the load, and then have a safety net at the end of it.
If I may add another option, Abra talked about taking external finance, which is a risky option, but if you were to consider a safer option, I would say it would be the retained profits. Since 90% of our revenue come from our own stores, reinvesting some of it can be a good idea, but this would obviously be a slower process as compared to external finance, but then again you have to balance the risk with the growth pace.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yes, lots more.
Yes.
I'd like to understand your rapid expansion plans a little bit. I think they're very ambitious. So walk me through. 3,400 stores by 2019. 75% of those licensed stores, as opposed to store-owned stores. We currently have a situation which you raised, where the current crop of licensed stores are under-contributing to revenue as a whole. And you did give some examples about activities that could be undertaken to sort of baseline and improve those stores. But conscious of your timelines, so if you were to prioritize the plethora of options that you gave us to get to 3,400 stores by 2019, where would you focus your activities on first?
First, we would try to standardize the whole experience for all stores, because currently our own stores give a very unique experience, whereas the franchise stores are falling much behind. So it is having a bad impact on the overall reputation of Starbucks in China. So initially we want to work on the service quality management, and we want to create that guideline that everyone can follow and have a very rigorous monitoring process, so that even if we go for a completely franchising model, we can still have that, we can still work on the current problems that's hampering our image. So that is the first thing that we do. And after we are more or less standardized, we have a baseline to compare their standards against. We can then focus on franchising these models and handing them over to the other entrepreneurs.
Thank you.
I have one last question, and that's to do with this, how should I say, not losing your exclusive image, but also an external component. What thoughts have you put in on local brands and external Korean, Taiwanese brands coming in? And how should I, as a Starbucks employee, look to defend our positioning on that front? What you've addressed is Starbucks. I'm asking about what else is there from an external perspective we need to be worried about.
Give us a minute to think.
Sure.
Because,
Please.
What do you think? As in, how do you stand out from local competitors and external competitors? Korean, yeah. How do you differentiate? And how do you stand?
So your main concern is about the local and the Taiwanese brands that are going to come in and take our customers away, right? Is that what the question is?
How are we defending the thought process of Costa not doing something unique that you have suggested and jumping the gun before we do? It's a hard question, I apologize.
No, let me answer that.
Sure.
What we aim to do is going local. We try to. We've also an analysis is that Chinese consumers do like the Western experience that Starbucks does bring. So we're going local mainly to combine the two. We're trying to combine local and our Western experience. So we feel that that Western component of our experience is something Chinese competitors will come for, aside from just the luxury element to it.
Okay. Thank you. That's great.
I have a follow-up question about your differentiated offerings based on big data. Let's assume you had a group of 4 people that showed up at the same Starbucks at the same time, and they're classmates. They have different buying patterns, different buying histories. Based on some of what you said, it might trigger different offers to them. How would you deal with a challenge if people felt they were getting a less favorable offering based on the use of their personal data as part of the in-store experience? So how would you be able to manage the fact that while you were trying to mine that data and give them something customized, you also possibly run the risk of creating different levels of experiences across the same population? Are we out of time?
We're out of
We can
time.
save that
I
for
didn't
another
see the
time.
1 minute sign. I'd have made it shorter. Thank you. You guys did a great job.
Thank you guys.
Thank you very much.